You ever have one of those days where life feels like it's finally giving you a break? Like the sun is shining just for you. The air feels clean and you think, yeah, I made it. That was me standing in the backyard of the house. My wife and I had worked half our lives to buy easing into the bubbling water of a hot tub. We hadn't even touched since moving in 3 months earlier. It was supposed to be perfect. My wife Carla had her sunglasses on laughing as our 10-year-old son Evan splashed around in his superhero trunks. And for 10 minutes, 10 whole glorious minutes, it was heaven. Until that voice cut through the air like a rusty knife. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" I turned, and there she was, Pearl Simons. She lived 2 doors down, hairsprayed into some kind of helmet, pearls around her neck, like she'd stepped out of a country club catalog. Only instead of golf clubs, she carried her phone like a weapon, already recording us face twisted in disgust. And the first thing out of her mouth wasn't just a complaint, it was an insult. She sneered. "This isn't some public housing complex. Your kind doesn't belong in this neighborhood." My body went cold. Carla sat up, her hand sliding instinctively onto Evan's shoulder, and the joy drained out of the boy's face as he looked from his mother to me, trying to figure out why this woman hated us for just sitting in a tub of water. I kept my voice even, told her, "This is our property. We just moved in. We're enjoying our hot tub." But she just laughed one of those dry, ugly cackles and pointed a finger at me. That's what they all say. First comes the noise, then the all-night parties, and before you know it, the whole neighborhood's ruined. I could see exactly what she meant when she said they. She didn't need to spell it out. Carla tried to reason with her, calm, firm, respectful, but Pearl wasn't looking for reason. She was looking for a fight. She screamed. She was on the HOA board. She was on neighborhood watch, and she was going to protect property values from people like us. And right there in front of us, she dialed 911 and told the dispatcher there were vagrants in the backyard of 317 Meadow Ridge Lane, my backyard. Said we were aggressive, threatening. My jaw literally dropped. Evan's lips trembled as he pressed his face into Carla's side. That was the moment my shock burned away and turned into rage. This wasn't just some busybody neighbor. This was a woman teaching my son that his very existence was dangerous. I told her she was lying, filing a false report, and she smirked, actually smirked, and said, "Oh, I'm not going anywhere. The police will be here soon and they'll put you back in your place." When the sirens came, my heart sank. 2 squad cars pulled up, lights flashing, and within seconds, 2 officers stormed around my house, guns already drawn. Not holstered, drawn. I've never felt fear like that in my life, standing in my own backyard with my hands raised, water dripping down my arms, nothing but swim trunks on, while Pearl screamed. "That's him!" He broke in. He threatened me. One officer looked young, nervous, finger tight on the trigger. The other older, tired eyes, like he'd seen this game before. I did everything by the book, spoke slowly, announced. Each move kept my hands visible. I told them my name, that I lived there, that my wife and son were inside. And then, like an angel, Carla came out in her robe, holding Evan's hand in one arm and a folder of documents in the other, deed utility bills, IDs. She handed them over like she was laying down a royal flush. The older officer scanned them, looked at us, then at the towels and toys scattered around the yard, and finally at Pearl, still shrieking like she was under siege. And the look he gave her was the same look you give a child throwing a tantrum in the grocery store. "Ma'am, he said this family lives here. These documents confirm it. There is no crime being committed. You'd think that would have ended it, but Pearl doubled down, demanding they arrest us for disturbing the peace. The officer warned her she was dangerously close to a false report charge. That flicker of fear in her eyes was almost satisfying, but when she stormed back into her house, slamming the door, she gave us one last look that said, "This isn't over." And she was right. A few days later, a crisp envelope showed up in our mailbox. Official HOA letterhead. A violation notice for unauthorized gathering and excessive noise. $200 fine. Signed by none other than Pearl Simons, head of the Community Standards Committee, judge, jury, and executioner. Carla read it out loud, her voice shaking with fury. She said, "She's using the HOA as her weapon. If we pay this, we admit guilt. She'll keep coming." And she was right. So we wrote a detailed response, laid out every minute of that day, cited the police incident report, even included the warning the officer gave Pearl. But deep down, I knew we were already in a war. Things escalated fast. One night, I noticed a red blinking light from Pearl's upstairs window. Took me a second to realize it was a video camera on a tripod aimed directly into our backyard. She wasn't even hiding it. She was watching us, stalking us. Carla closed the blinds and said, "That's it. We're getting a lawyer." That's how we met Denise Evans, a sharp civil rights attorney with no patience for nonsense. When I told her everything, Pearl's insults, the false police called the violation letter, the surveillance, she didn't hesitate. "This isn't just an HOA dispute," she said. "This is targeted harassment. We'll send a cease and desist. If they don't stop, we sue." We sent the letter. Pearl ignored it. The HOA lawyer fired back, calling us liars, defending Pearl's security camera, and threatening to sue us for defamation. So we filed a lawsuit, harassment, housing discrimination, emotional distress. And just like that, our quiet little street became a battlefield. Pearl struck back with her dirtiest move yet. She filed for a restraining order against me. Claimed I stared at her through the windows, revved my car to scare her whispered threats. It was absurd, but I still had to stand in a courtroom and prove I wasn't some monster. I showed up in my one good suit, stomach and knots. Pearl came in dressed like a grieving widow, clutching tissues. Her lawyer spinning tales about me being a large, intimidating man obsessed with his client. And then she took the stand crying real tears, saying she just wanted to feel safe. Denise was ice cold. She tore her story apart piece by piece. Asked her why she called the police 2 months before we even filed our lawsuit. Accused my 10-year-old of being a vagrant. Asked her to explain the camera aimed at our backyard. Denise even produced a blown-up photo of that glowing red light. The judge's face went stone hard. She slammed her gavel and said, "This petition is frivolous and retaliatory. Case dismissed." It was like a dam broke. The camera disappeared the next day. Some neighbors who'd been silent started waving again. One even brought cookies. For the first time, the tide was turning. But the HOA doubled down. Their lawyer refused to back off, so our lawsuit pushed forward into depositions. Pearl had to sit under oath and repeat her lies, but Denise caught her contradicting herself. Confronted her with statements from Tom, a neighbor who finally came forward and admitted he overheard her screaming those racist slurs. Piece by piece, Pearl's story crumbled. That's when the HOA cracked. First, one board member resigned, then another. Their insurance threatened to drop them if the case went to trial. They offered us a settlement, drop, the fine drop, the suit sign, an NDA. Carla didn't even blink. No. We want a public apology, Pearl off the board, and our legal fees covered. Weeks of tense negotiations later, they caved. The HOA issued a letter to every household admitting they mishandled complaints, acknowledging we'd been harassed, announcing Pearl's resignation. They cut us a check big enough to cover every legal bill and then some. Reading that letter out loud at our kitchen island, the same spot where we toasted champagne when we first moved in, felt surreal. Carla cried. I just sat there staring, realizing the war was finally over. Pearl became a ghost. Curtains drawn front yard neglected no more pearls in silk blouses, just a bitter old woman stripped of her power. A few months later, a for sale sign went up, and soon enough, a young couple moved in, teachers with 2 kids Evan's age. They showed up with a pie and said, "We heard about the last owner. We're not her." That one sentence lifted a weight I hadn't realized was still sitting on my chest. Now when I watch Evan laughing in the backyard again, tossing a ball with his mom, or when we sit in that hot tub on a warm evening, I think about what we went through. We wanted a quiet life, but instead we got a crash course in resilience. We learned that a house isn't really a home until you've fought for it. Pearl tried to make us smaller, tried to chase us out, but all she did was prove we were stronger than her hate. So here's what I want to know. What do you think? Was the HOA just protecting their own, or did they cross a line by letting one bitter neighbor weaponize their power? Should people like Pearl be banned from serving on boards altogether? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share your own stories, and let's talk about where you stand. 'Cause trust me, one day it might be your hot tub, your backyard, your fight.